Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final GBC Live of 2023. It's been an amazing year. This is also special because I think you'll also find this feed not only just on YouTube, not only on Facebook Live, but also on Instagram. So a lot of new things happening here. Tonight, our guest is Ben Brainard. He's the person behind the Shasta Gravel Hugger, March 9th. Up in outside of Wairika, very north part of the state. Before we bring everyone in, first of all, a few videos down the pipeline. Yes, Vic and I will be taping next week our best of 2023. That'll be our first video of 2024, followed by very soon part 2 of the very coveted Lost Coast adventure. Also, though, this Thursday, we'll give a quick little recap of our Send It from this past Saturday over Maverick Cycles in Whittier. And just briefly filling in this week for Vic was someone who happened to be at this event. And this is Andrew from Gravel Pack, who obviously has 2 thumbs. How's it going, Andrew?
Living the dream. Living the dream.
Yes. Now, thank you for joining us tonight. I know it's your birthday, so I have this can. Anyways, glad to have you. I should have prepared even more, but you just saw your Catalina adventure video. That looked like a great experience, and obviously you've just made a lot of people jealous at a time when the weather isn't that great.
Yeah, we got in right before the weather turned. I think we also missed a bunch of groups from Gravel Bike California too. And it's great to talk to you guys. Very active in that group and always loving to see all the different things and how we connect with each other and get to do all the rides. Because really, Zach, you've created this really cool platform that we get to do all these adventures, and now we get to share our own adventures with other people. And I just love that it brings people together, and it's so positive. So I missed some of you guys, I think, by a week. There's a group that went out before us to Catalina 1 week before us and 1 week afterwards. So great place to bike pack. So check that out.
Yeah, we had just we didn't get our tickets, so the boats were full. So that's a first piece of advice for anybody playing this trip, is to get your tickets ahead of time. Quickly, before we bring Ben on, I consider Northern California the top third of the state, and I think it's a very under represented area that doesn't get as much love as it should, because it's a fantastic area to visit, to ride. And little known fact, do you know that in 2023 the most gravel events was in Siskiyou County?
I did not know that.
Yeah, 45th largest in county wise, out of 58 in California. And yet I think that kind of tells a little bit about what a great area that is. So with that, let's bring Ben in and say hello. Welcome to GBC Live. How you doing, Ben?
Doing great. It's quite the honor to be on.
Well, yes, it's basically, like a Presidential Medal of Honor without the Medal of Honor, but it's something you can go ahead and wear your cap around. So yeah, we're excited to talk about this because Andrew and I were both talking about how we have driven through the area, but actually I touched foot on the ground last June and rode some of the roads in the area, and it's an exceptional, and not just the roads but the views themselves. But tell me how you came about starting the Shasta Gravel Hugger.
Yeah, I have a good friend, Tom Nealon, who puts on some great rides called Honey Badger rides, and he has 2 different rides. One was called the Weed Honey Badger, which is out of Weed, Oregon, and then the other one was called the Strada Bianchi ride, which was out of Montague. And they were both about 40 to 50 miles. And I said, you know what? We could connect these 2 into one 100-mile race, and we would cover all the very best Champaign gravel of Siskiyou County. And so that, yeah, 5 years ago we made it happen.
Yeah, and one of the things I think really, one of my favorite areas in California is Eastern Sierra, but I think part of it is because of the volcanic activity, kind of like gives a blend of the high mountains versus the low ground, and being able to have those views, and the dirt that is settled there, and I think that that area is just very exceptional in terms of what to see. And it seems like there's like a lot of, I've seen somebody post some of the honey badger routes on our GBC page, and it looks like, just beyond your event, like you can really just go on and on in the area.
Yeah, there's endless amount of roads here. It doesn't take long once you venture off of I-5, which almost everybody is familiar with because they zip through this valley all the time on their way someplace else. And the trick is to make sure that you stop here, because it doesn't take but a second and you're on some of the best gravel roads, and they're not like completely chunked out creek beds or anything like that. They are beautiful gravel roads. Even if you get way up into the mountains, they're well-maintained gravel. That one of the main industries around here is logging still, and they have to be able to get into the woods. And so my race doesn't use necessarily logging roads. They're more like ranching roads, but man, endless supply of great gravel.
Do you feel like your event has helped with people stopping? Because like we talked before we went live, for me, I drool every time I drive by, Shasta, because it's so beautiful. And other than being the, titled houseboat capital of the world, I thought that was looking at fun facts in Shasta. And I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. More houseboats on one body of water than anywhere else in the world. Do you feel like that's like helped local businesses? Because you guys are kind of putting Shasta on the map for gravel.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to quantify what's happened there, but yeah, I mean, we have all our routes posted. It's not like we're doing a route reveal. So if anyone wants to go to my website and see any of the routes that we use for my race, then they're all right there, including links. If you log into like Ride with GPS, which is a big one, I have a whole page of routes in that valley that are readily available for someone to pull off the road. And some of them are like literally, you're 100 yards from I-5. So if you hit East Louis on your way through, you could leave your car on the exit and you'd be on gravel road, And so, yeah, there's a bunch of different routes that are available. And I think people are discovering it, and we're definitely trying to get the word out about how awesome the riding is.
Awesome.
Yeah, when I was there, I stopped into the Jefferson Bike Company and spoke with Bill there, and he was super helpful. And I could he went talking about all the routes up and around in that area too, and I got to get a little taste. And something about Mount Shasta being there, one of our 14,000 foot peaks that's just central, and you look at all different angles and there's basically snow on it, year round. It's just such a gorgeous setting that I just think it's like a theater. It's so unique, because I know the Eastern Sierra, you're kind of surrounded by these walls, but it's almost like, Bob Ross doing a painting. Like it's right there, and you're supposed, it's a canvas that you just, you stare at, and just even everything else, the rural parts, just a fantastic landscape.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's, as they say, like when the mountain is out, it is unbelievable. I think a few years ago when Pete won the first time, he came up and he said it was distracting, because you're out there trying to race. And there's that particular year, we had a long stretch where the mountain was literally front and center for probably 35 minutes. And when it's out, it's just like, it's magical. And it definitely has an aura about it or something that it just makes you feel good.
Okay. Now I realize I'm not the best wordsmith here. Maybe I should bring up some photos, because those are probably worth 1,000 words more than what I'm saying. But I pulled up some of the photos. Now, this is from last year's event, and I don't think I have to preference this to anyone in California. Last year was an unusually heavy, snowy, and weathered year, and there was tons of events that got canceled, and you guys went through with it, which just looked awesome. I mean, people that had to deal with the snow, but I saw John was out there, the gravel cyclist, and it looked like, even though there was snow out there, like it was a great day to ride in those elements.
Yeah, last year was quite shocking. I have photos at 6 a.m. that morning as we were getting up to set up, and the sun was out, and then all of a sudden, boom, this thing hit us. And we knew it was coming, so we postponed the start 2 hours to accommodate. Like, hey, let's get the temperature up a couple more degrees and stuff. But yeah, the joke is we've had snow somewhere on course all 5 years, and so it kind of has become this event where, yeah, you got to expect snow, but it's really silly, as everyone knows, that, like, I mean, I ride through January and February and March every weekend, but this one and we don't have snow, so it is unusual, but it is March and early March, so you have to expect any kind of weather, that's for sure.
And then now I know this is just some of the scenery back there, but first of all, it seems even non-event days, whatever, just open roads, and you don't have to deal with traffic, with too many other things, rather than just concentrating on the ride itself.
Yeah, I ride there all the time, and this is this little section of York on the north side. And if you get passed by a car, it's a 2-lane gravel road, but if you get passed by a car on a Saturday, it's like, whoa, what are you doing out here? It is odd that you have these beautiful roads and there's no cars. Like we'll do 40 or 50 miles down there just on a weekend for fun, and if you see 2 cars on any of the gravel roads, it's amazing. So yeah, it's not very populated area, despite having, some decent population in the towns but ranchers and stuff like that, thousands of acres of land. So
looks like great surfaces too, right? Like you said, Champaign/Hero gravel. That looks amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that road can get a little washboardy at times, but it's always been good for race. Like, cause in the spring, and they usually get out there and grade it, and we have moisture from the winter. And so it's a good combo. Usually those roads are extremely fast. I mean, this is like a 3-mile, mostly downhill section. I mean, you're doing well into the 20s without even trying, and safe, good stuff.
Wow. I mean, we need some of this technology down here in Southern California, because we have not figured out how to make a good dirt road here. But yeah, I mean, I mean, you could just look at the surface itself here. When I rode out there, same thing in June, which is my favorite time of the year to ride in terms of like surfaces. But when I was coming off one of the mountains, you can tell right here that just the surface just was fantastic, which feels strange for us, for areas that aren't served by too many people.
Right. Yeah, almost all the roads on this route are relatively low because of the time of year. We can't get up into the hills too awfully much. So yeah, we use kind of main roads. Most of them are 2-lane, with the exception of a few. But yeah, it's all fantastic surface. It's a fast race. I mean, if the conditions are right, the winners are doing over 20 miles an hour. It's almost like a road race. It's very fast speeds. There's not a lot of elevation. We're into the mid 3,500 elevation for 100 miles and cumulative. So it's not a lot of climbing, and I expect it to be a dynamic race. And like last year, it was pretty pack heavy for the first 30 to 40 miles. So, try to catch a ride while you can. And so it's a different type of gravel event that I attend in the Northwest. Like, it's a ton of climbing and it's blown apart in the first couple of minutes. It's not that type of a race.
Yeah, the elevation looked kind of dreamy looking through both of your routes. I was like, man, how the heck did you get such low? Like, even in my little city, Riverside, like if we're doing 20 miles, I got close to 1,500 or 2,000 feet of elevation. I was like, how the heck did you do 100 on dreamy gravel looking into a mountain? I was like, looks awesome.
Yeah, it's because we have to stay low. I mean, you can easily get into that type of elevation anywhere in the hills around there. We just go around the Shasta Valley, and it's up and down all day, but not steep, and it's not long. So not long climbs. Yeah.
And you also, now I just did we'll be previewing the half hugger, but you've got the longer ride and you have a shorter ride in between too. So there's almost something for all types of cyclists.
Yeah, we have 3 different routes. The 100-mile is kind of like the flagship route. And that's the one that we usually get the most racy people in. They're going for it. It's an early season race. And so it's a good leg tester. But, we equally have probably the same number of participants in the half hug, which is 65 miles. And then last year was the first year we did the handshake route. And that's 35-ish miles. And it stays on most of the same roads that everyone is. So they're all out there enjoying the same scenery. But one gets to take a couple shortcuts.
Now, I wanted to highlight, this was, I guess, from last year's event where it did have the snow, but, it still looked pretty good. Just a few snow droplets here and there. And this photo here kind of like tells me a lot. And I didn't notice it the first time, but the guy in front is just not wearing any leg warmers or anything. And I think like people like me, you see snow and you think Elsa is going to shoot somebody, but it doesn't seem like it's cold, but it's not that cold.
No, it was cold. It was cold. That's a funny story. That picture does bring up a memory. That's Adam Roberts. He's from Quebec. He rides fat bikes all winter long and does a ton of trainer rides, for his workouts. But he showed up to that race and he was ready to race. And I think in the first 5 miles, he realized if I sit in, I'm going to freeze to death. And so, yeah, within the first 10 miles, him and Brendan Wirtz were on a breakaway, and then, people were chasing them the whole time. But I think that's the only way Adam could stay warm, is if he was going for it the whole time.
And he's from Canada, so he's just built different and can do that, because I would have been a frozen popsicle, like still attached to my bike on the side.
I think if he had to do it over again, actually, I've talked to him about it. He's like, yeah, that wasn't that smart. But that was a colder year. I think even last year wasn't even that cold. And by the end of the day, we had great photos and beautiful sunshine by the end of that day. So, yeah.
So you just basically have a Charlie Brown cloud the last couple of years.
We get something.
Yeah, we'll find that football. And like I said, the pictures just speak for themselves. It just is such an amazing spot to be out at. Mm-hmm. And I just, most Californians, there's 40 million people, but very few people probably drive through this part of the state. And Just a unique opportunity to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you can, let me pull up our little 3D fly through. And what I did here was, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and throw them in the comments here on the side. But just kind of like giving a little idea of this on the course. Now, the one thing I forgot to add in here, or wasn't able to add, are the number of gravel sectors that are in here. And Ben has a unique setup for the gravel sectors. I'm kind of surprised no one else I haven't seen here in California, I think. But tell us a little bit about what you do for each of the sectors.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of model this race after a spring classic. So yeah, it's going to have the dodgy weather that you get with spring, and it might be kind of a cold one. But then the other thing is it's only like a week away from Paris-Roubaix, and so I try to model the race after the Paris-Roubaix, where anytime you leave pavement and go on to gravel, you're hitting a new sector. And so we go out and create sector signs that tell a little bit about each of the sectors as you hit them, like if it's smooth gravel, or if it's got some chunk, or, be careful or something like that. And so we put some fun little comments on them. So anytime you leave pavement, we put a sector sign out there that tells you a little about how long it is and what you're going to see. And so, but this map is interesting. So the start town is kind of in the bottom, in the center, and it's Montague. And so we have about 5 miles of pavement on both directions. That, of course, anytime you have a town, you got to deal with that a little bit. If there are some towns that have great gravel right out of there, but in order to connect to some of these really cool roads, we have to have a little bit of pavement on both ends. But so you kind of head east out of town, and you get to Big Springs, and so it's usually pretty pack dynamic to that point. So you just want to be positioned well heading into that first sector. No matter what race you do, it tends to get a little hairy right there on that first sector, and it's full gas for that first one. And the Big Springs is a 4.6 mile. Yeah, you're seeing it right there, 4.6 miles, and it's relatively flat and fast gravel. And so, yeah, we see some really fast times through that first sector. So, and then
you kind of head in here towards the kind of like along the foothills here.
Yeah, that's actually pretty flat right there too. That bottom section across the bottom there is East Louis, and that's and we're like at the half hug route. The full hug goes quite a bit further south first, but the second sector for the half hug is this East Louis, which is referred to as the Jeep Trail. And it's pretty chunky. This is the reason you don't ride a road bike. That we've toyed with the idea of like, well, maybe we'll take this sector out, but it kind of keeps people honest on what type of a bike they bring to this race. Under perfect conditions, you can ride this thing on 30 or 32 millimeter slicks. With the exception of this road, if it's dry, it's sandy. If it's wet, it's muddy, and it has all sorts of this lava rock all through there that can end your day quickly. And so, and it's a cyclocross type of a course. You got to pick your lines, and sometimes you only have a couple of inches to thread between some of these sharp rocks. So it's legitimate road that you got to prepare for. I always suggest people to preview it.
Do you see a lot of people using like suspension or anything like that? Or is it just, what's your view on that?
Yeah, I've seen it all, but I would say the people racing at the pointy end of the race are all on gravel bikes. I don't think I've seen any of them with a suspension fork, because most of these roads are really pretty smooth. And there is a decent amount of pavement. So in the 100-mile course, it's like 44 miles of pavement, which is it's enough that it's enough that you don't want to be running some big heavy tires the whole time. So no suspension unless all bikes are welcome, including e-bikes. So yeah,
that's cool. I think like e-bikes have definitely opened up, and this would be a great course for it, because obviously not a lot of elevation, and you can get by on a charge.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of interesting when I pull up the Google map, it has like all these little small notes of small places along the way. And I know, like, you look at the aerial, it doesn't seem like it's that habited, but I see like along the stretch, we kind of mile 30, which I guess is about the halfway point, this little stretch here, that there's like, I guess, like the little Shasta cemetery you go by. And like I said, you see these little small footprints all over the place. And I believe this kind of leads you off the road. Then there's like a dirt sector right off of mile 30.
Yeah. That little sector is cool, and it's part of the original Honey Badger route, and it's neat. There's definitely a shortcut to get to Townsend Road, which is the big kind of blocky thing up above. But yeah, that's a pretty punchy little climb right out of there. A good place to get some separation, but it's a pretty well maintained road too.
Now it seems like from this point we're just kind of climbing. It doesn't look like it on the map, but it seems
that
like
section right there it's legitimate. So here I got some detail on Townsend Road. So Townsend Road is, from that right-hand turn onto Townsend Road, it's pretty false flatty, but not much elevation. But over the course of the whole thing, it is 850 feet of climbing, and it comes into some punchy sections. So it's a real climb there. That's probably one of the tougher 30 minutes on the race, because it's pretty much up the whole time, but it's not gonna eliminate a big powerful guy, because what it averages out to, I want to say 3.4% over 4 miles, which doesn't sound like much, and it's only a couple really steep kickers in there, but yeah, and it is beautiful.
Yeah, averages, I don't trust those anymore. I do. Zach will be like, the Send It Mavericks or whatever, and it's like the average says it's like this, and it's like, oh no, there's a kicker in there that's going to kick you pretty good. It's definitely well above to get that average. So yeah, don't trust averages.
Yeah. And then once you get off there, that's just an absolute ripper of a descent coming down off Townsend. It's on Snowden Hovey Gulch Road, and it's hold on 35 miles an hour if you can stand it. Yeah, it's fun and it's beautiful. So don't get distracted at 35 miles an hour.
Yeah, this looks like a really interesting section, and a lot of roads always tend to follow by these streams, and this is no exception. Great place to put a road along a creek. And so now I guess we're turning kind of back in, and kind of feels like we're in the home stretch, but looks like there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the first pictures you showed where you can see all the way across the valley, that's on York Road, which is kind of like going on the whole northern part of the route. Absolute beautiful road. But yeah, it's far from over for the half hug and the full hug. You got to go all the way to the bottom, and then you have about a 4 or 5 mile false flat coming back up out of there too. So yeah, it's just it's a leg zapper by the end of the day for sure.
And then like kind of like now it's a little bit more than a metric century. It's 65 miles, but I noticed just kind of like on the way back here. First time I've featured it so far. I've got Mount Shasta there in the background, and like I said, it's one of those things when you come across a 14,000 foot mountain, we don't understand that scale because we don't see stuff like that normally, and we approach it, at different speed than you probably would imagine. But that's kind of like a great way to kind of like end this route, is you kind of have that in the background.
Yeah, it is magnificent. I don't even know how many words to describe it. Yeah, it's always beautiful. Doesn't matter if you're standing in the middle of the desert, which this area can be pretty dry in the summertime. In the spring, it can be really beautiful green all through here too. But the mountain is always stands out.
Mm-hmm. And then from here, it seems like, kind of a straight shot from the airport. I don't know if there are any flights that people can take to get in here.
No.
Okay.
I think it's just a firefighting and kind of an airport at this stage in the game. Yeah, it's good you bring up airports though. Like, if people are traveling, we do have people come from all over the world actually to this thing. You want to fly into, the quickest place is to fly into Medford, Oregon. It's a great airport, great services there. Your other option is to fly into Redding Airport, also an equally great airport. And they're not very far. Medford is about an hour north of here. Redding, gosh, I'm not sure. It's a little over an hour south of here, I think. But anyway, you can easily fly into those two things. And then, Portland and, San Francisco are quite a bit further away. Like, you got to plan that. It's going to be an extra 5 or 6 hours of driving if you fly into one of those major airports. But both Redding and Medford, great services. Don't hesitate to fly into either of those airports.
Yeah, we've used the Medford airport a few times before, and that's been fantastic. And obviously, tons of rental cars there, very easy to access. And I haven't used the Redding airport, but I know that there are a few airline connections from Southern California to get up there, as well as to the Medford airport as well. So yeah, it's not as crazy as people think. And the flight, I guess, from Southern California is only about an hour and a half. Probably get up there anyway. So
yeah, there's a daily flight from LA nowadays from a couple of different airlines that come into Medford. So, and Phoenix, and you can fly into any major airport in kind of the region and still find your way into Medford real easy. So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Someone's asking if you've reached your registration limit on the past events. I know it's been like some weather challenges so far, but I've definitely have seen a lot more people talk about it. And, I think people are figuring out it's an easy destination, and you've attracted some, like I said, the gravel cyclist was there last year, and some other pro cyclists. You mentioned Stetina, but it is showing up on people's radar more and more every year.
Yeah, as a promoter, that's kind of my job. I got to try to get in front of people. I wish I was better with the socials and had more time. So, I put on one race a year. It's not like I'm a promoter and I just have this dialed. So it's quite a bit of work for me. And to answer the question of, are we reaching our limits? No, these roads can handle, and this area can handle more people than we've seen use at this race. So, I mean, we've been at 400 people is our biggest race, and that was 2 years ago. Last year we had a snowstorm the morning of the race, which kept a third of the people away. And so, that's unfortunate, but I think these roads can handle well into the thousands, really. And we cap it at 1,000, but we haven't been there yet. Yeah.
That's a big number though.
Yeah. And we do a couple of things, there's a lot of, I'm a huge gravel race connoisseur. Like I like to travel. It's kind of a destination thing, you know. So I've done the Unbounds and I've done gravel nationals last year, and so I've been to some of these races, and I don't think they do anything special over what I'm doing. And sometimes I feel like I put on a much better race than some of these places. But I forget where I was going with that. But it's yeah, I think we can handle a lot of people, and definitely Discover Siskiyou, who is the tourism people in the area. They've been supportive of the race and have helped try to recruit some people to come for us. So it's a good place, and we can handle quite a few more people than we've seen. So.
And I think for me, it's location, right? The famous saying. And Shasta has such a unique, it's like every backdrop looks like a painting, like Zach was talking about earlier. So those of you guys are watching, especially have a significant other, maybe likes doing photos. There's all kinds of crazy stuff out there too. I was looking at Sundial Bridge is one of the world's largest sundials, I guess. The Shasta Dam is the second largest dam in the United States. And then it looks like you guys have the largest population of bald eagles in the lower 48 that winter there. Now in March, I don't know if you're going to be able to see any of that. Can't make any promises, but you have a lot of beauty packed into a small place with hero gravel. Sounds pretty spectacular to me.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to travel to the race, don't try to pack it into a weekend. You know, take a week at minimum and explore it. This is some incredible places to ride.
Yeah, I was even, you know, when I was up there in June, I woke up a little early to pick my wife up from Medford, and I, you know, drove around some of these smaller, I don't know if you even call them towns, because they probably used to have maybe a few dozen, and now maybe it's just down to a handful of people. But just kind of like amazing the footprints that are still there. And, you know, even though you don't see a lot of people, they're still not that far away from each other, because before we had a vehicle, people were still pretty close. And that's kind of like the amazing part of just being able to look at the scale of that, and how much smaller it makes this big area feel. You know, and then, you know, my wife always says it's so close to Oregon. There's no sales tax in Oregon. So that's another thing that she's excited whenever we make our trips up there. And, you know, for me, like I suppose I call this Gravel by California adjacent, because I mean, it's a silly line on a map, and things are so close. And I even heard, I believe there's a part where a couple towns share the same sheriff's office between Oregon and California. So yeah, I know, like we're pretty interconnected here.
Must be in Weed, because it's kind of high up there.
Just waiting for that. It's one birthday joke. One question I always seem to get from people is camping, because I know some people love to bring their campers up, and I know that there are hotels in Wairika and you know, there in Oregon and everything else. But what are the camping options like up there?
Yeah, we have a nice old, I guess it's an area where they used to load logs onto a train. And so we have these big, huge kind of fields that are right off the start finish line. So the town of Montague, who has been incredible to work with, man, they're awesome. They want to see things happen in their town. And so it's exciting to work with them. But yeah, they allow us to have camping. So Friday night, you're allowed to show up in your vans if you have those, or campers or motorhomes or whatever. Just know that if it's been super rainy, you might want to make sure that you don't get into a spot where it gets soft, because we have had a couple of people get stuck. But yeah, we have free camping right there at the start finish line. And then if you want to have hookups, we got there's a couple of campgrounds just outside of town that are right on the Klamath River. Beautiful campgrounds, full hookups, and yeah, it's great.
And I appreciate, like we mentioned off camera, that for those of you guys watching too, if you go to his website, it's all very simply laid out, and right there it has accommodations. Just mention the ride, and the prices are amazing. So I'm the hotel person. It's funny because I bike pack all the time. If I'm doing something like this, I'm doing a big ride the next day, I'm like, I think I'm going to do the hotel. And the prices were awesome. So I really appreciate that you navigated that. And I love that it's going to local businesses. I think that's one of the things I love most about a lot of this gravel stuff is it's been such a positive force for the communities it's in. It's great.
One other question I see pop up here. Is there an after party included as part of the registration? Maybe not after party, but like a meal, or what's some of the ride activities?
Yeah, we have in the past. Last year we didn't do it. Weather was a little bit bad, but we've done a post-race ride, and it's usually hosted by some of the pros that are showing up to the race. And then we've done the pre-race ride last year with a little preview of some of it. So yeah, so if you stick around on Saturday night, then you can for sure do those things. Now, as far as an after party, no, we don't have like bands coming in tents and a lot of beer drinking or something like that. Given the time of year, it's too questionable for me to try to have some sort of a party afterwards, because if it's raining or snowing or something, like, no one's going to want to do that anyway. And so yeah, we encourage people to stick around and come ride the next day, but we don't have anything too special. In the past, we have offered a voucher to have a burrito from a burrito truck, and we hope to do something similar to that this year. If nothing else, have some food trucks available for people to purchase foods with. And we've done a band in the past, and the band was fantastic. But what I found as I looked around, as this band was just jamming and playing, is like everyone was talking about what they just did on the bike. And the band had like 10 people watching, and everyone else was just talking and eating burritos. And I'm like, all right, we'll just play music and do podiums and stuff like that. So yeah, not a lot of after party, but
yeah. And I encourage you, when it goes to a gravel event, bring a chair. Like, that is, bring a chair, bring some stuff afterwards anyways, because that's kind of like more of the vibe. It's about the ride more than anything else. And everyone has a different way of enjoying it. So I probably should put that in my Christmas list, a better chair, because mine seems to collapse at the right comical time.
They built in entertainment.
Yeah, there's a really nice Costco chair I keep forgetting to grab. But that's if someone sees my Christmas list, go ahead and snatch one. But yeah, it just, if you're going to go out there, you're definitely going to remember the ride more than anything else.
Yeah, and Gravel Bike California people can see other Gravel Bike California people out there and say, "What's up?"
Yeah. Well, Ben, thanks so much for coming on and joining us and talking about this. I know it's March 9th. You moved it back a week from the year before?
Yeah. That's kind of a couple of things going on there. So Mid-South was kind of another race that hits the calendar and attracts a lot of people, including, some of our regional pros. And so I don't want to conflict with Mid-South. And this year being a leap year, it's kind of weird. We have this kind of a weird week. And so Mid-South, this moved themselves back, 5 days or something like that, and went backwards in the calendar, which freed up this weekend. So I'm not conflicted with the BWR Arizona. And so if someone wants to do all three of them, they sure can. But all
the stuff you have to worry about as a promoter.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, just there was a nice little spot, roughly the same time of year. And, the weather always comes up. And so people are like, well, why don't you just move it back a month? It's like, well, with my real job, there's no way I can go back. I already push it back about as far as I can. It's just, I get so busy in the spring. And so yeah, it's as far back as it can go until we sell that business. So.
All right. Well, I'll keep track on how the contracts are going on that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, thanks so much for joining us. I hope to make it up there, build, it's just fantastic terrain. I just know the memories, everything else. So, thanks for bringing this event to everyone, and looking forward to March. Yeah,
sounds good. Hope to see both of you guys up here, and I'm sure you're going to bring the sun from sunny Southern California.
That's right.
It's probably going to be 70 degrees.
All right, I won't bring any leg warmers.
Everything. Pack every item of clothes that you could possibly need. That's what I tell people. You just never know. Give it an hour. So, thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
Yeah, see ya.